Master has presented Dobby with clothes. Dobby is free.
Warning. This video may contain graphic language, graphic violence, gross cartoon penises, and a whole lot of Pimpy the pimp-ass pimp showing motherfuckers what's up. Viewer discretion is advised.
What is going on out there, peeps? Okay, I've had a lot of you say, how come I don't do Nicera videos anymore? And that's because I went down the list and proved all the ones that I could, and there really wasn't a whole lot left to talk about. So many of you are asking to do like updated versions of them, so I started looking into this. So I'll update any information that I can find out there that is new, that's pertaining to a list, and I'll show you the list here in a minute. But I can tell you this, one of the things that's on that list that people speak a lot about is a debt jubilee. Now here's where I get into it with people. People are so tied up on this announcement that's supposed to be coming, and you're going to hear the words, the Nicera and the Jacera, and I go, there's nothing out there that says they're going to make some announcement by that name. That doesn't mean you can't have a debt jubilee. I'm just saying if they call it by those names, then congratulations. But if they don't, focus on the items that are on the list. Again, I'll show you that here in just a moment. So in my conversations with people, I had mentioned on more than one occasion that this used to be a normal thing in debt jubilee. It used to happen in cycles, and for whatever reason, it stopped. And the reason why they did debt jubilee is because the people that were in power were concerned if the people became too overburdened with debt, that they would rise up against those in power. So they knew it was in their best interest to do debt forgiveness, or debt jubilee is what happened, which I think is a smart thing because we're starting to see people rise up now. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Before we get started, if you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, or any other precious metals for that matter, head on over to our friends at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. When you purchase over there at Money Metals Exchange, you will now be automatically entered into a chance to get free giveaways. This month, you'll be automatically registered to be one of 3 people who will receive 10 ounces. That's 10 silver eagles each. So head on over to Money Metals, make your purchase, and automatically enter to win. For those of you who are unaware, I do have my own webpage. I can be found at Pimpy's News Network. Over here, I do post videos that I can't post on YouTube without getting in trouble. I also have my own Facebook group called Pimpy's Investment Chat. Over here, we do talk about gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, as well as foreign currency investments. So come on over here and join us. It's free to do so. I can also be found over here on Twitter, MeWe, YouTube, Odyssey, and now I'm on Rumble. For whatever reasons, my videos are not showing up on my channel yet, but I can be found just by going to the search button and typing in Pimpy's Investment Chat. And my videos will pop up for you to check out. If I get kicked off YouTube or I get suspended on YouTube, you can find me on any other one of these social media platforms. I'm going to have to update this portion of my video because the videos are now uploading on my channel. So just follow the link down below if you want to find me on Rumble. Again, I want to encourage everybody to go down in the description, look for the link to Money Metals. If you follow that link and you go make a purchase at Money Metals, you are automatically enrolled for a chance to win 10 silver ounces. 3 people will be chosen. So go ahead down below to the link, follow it, make a purchase, and you are entered to win. So this is the list right here. I don't need to get all into the story about the St. Germains and this law that was passed and the farmers and the whole 9 yards, which is all just bullshit. Okay, you guys? Get past that. Focus on what matters the most. See these bulleted items on here? Do you see the changes that they want to see implemented? That should be what you focus on the most. We don't need all the stories about how you got to get up to your 5th level of cautiousness in order for you to get your free money because the QFS system only picks up on your vibes. It's just crap, man. It's crap. So I'll start going down these lists again and seeing what I can prove so that we can go over this. So the first bulleted item says, forgives credit card, mortgage, and other bank debt due to illegal banking and government activity. Let me just say this. All these things that are on here, in order for you to actually get them all implemented, you would need people to rise up and agree that these things need implemented right away. And then you pressure the government to do it. Remember, they're there to work for you. You are their employer. So you demand what you want. But having said that, as far as debt forgiveness taking place due to illegal banking and government activities, that would be nice. We all know that there's a lot of things that the government currently does that violates our Constitution, as well as illegal. What one individual tries to stand up against the government, because usually you get squashed real quick. So that doesn't mean you can't get debt forgiveness. Those of you who know my story, I told you I was listening to April and AJ. We were chatting one time and they were telling me about how these people were posting inside Santa Surfing's group stating that they were getting debt forgiveness. And they were talking about how their student loans were forgiven, their mortgages were forgiven. And I thought that was interesting because my student loan had automatic withdrawal out of my bank account. And it was a big chunk of money, trust me. But I noticed that over the last couple of months before I looked into this, nothing was taken out of my bank account. I just didn't think much of it. I don't check it a lot. I just figured sooner or later they would get it. There must be something going on wrong. But when they told me what was going on, I went back into my bank account and the money was still there. So I pulled up my credit report and to my amazement, my student loan was gone. It showed zero all the way down, paid in full, good standings. Now we're talking about somewhere around 156,000 or so. Keep in mind, I have 5 degrees, including master's. And that stuff compounded with interest was killing me. So of course I got a little excited. But you can't make any assumption about debt being gone based on your credit report. Everybody knows that sometimes they make a mistake. So the next morning, I called the creditor up. We went over the account. Now, keep in mind, these are government people I'm talking to. That's a guaranteed government student loan. So a collection agency isn't going to get it. This is the collection agency. This is the government's loans. So as I went over the account with this lady, she said, yeah, I don't show any balance on your student loans. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, it's paid off. You don't have any more money that you owe. I said, no money, it's gone? She says, yes, sir. And I go, how is that possible? I had a balance on it. I didn't tell her how much, of course. She goes, well, all I can tell you is I'm looking at your account. There's $0 there. So everybody knows this story. I went into my credit report and I proved it to show everybody that it was zeroed out. Now, what I also said was, you could call it Nasera, call it whatever you want. All I know is that the balance was zeroed out. I think too many people get caught up in the label, Nasera. You don't get caught up in that. Because I don't think there's going to be any special announcement that gets made and all this other stuff. But that doesn't mean that these things won't happen. So forgiveness of credit cards, I've seen a lot of people get credit card relief, mortgage relief, like debt forgiveness. For some strange reason, these mortgages were paid off. And to be honest with you, people were asking, and it wasn't just me, it was my wife at the time, hers as well. Now, people said, what are they doing in alphabetical order? Is it by social security number? And the truth of the matter is, I didn't know what triggered it or why it even happened. I have no clue. Still today, we're talking about years later, there's nothing there. I didn't have anything that I could share with people. There was nothing that I can see that was a pattern. All I know is that it was paid off. And there's a lot of people out there that somehow, some way ended up with some form of debt relief. So this is what I'm trying to say to you. Some of these things could happen to you. That doesn't make it Nasera. That doesn't mean they won't announce Nasera. I'm just saying focus on the items. Debt jubilee is what this is. So as I was saying before, that in ancient times, they used to do this cycle of debt forgiveness. I think it was like once every 49 years, they would do a round of debt forgiveness and people would have a fresh start. And this kept the people from rising up against those in power. So this person seems to believe that a debt jubilee of biblical proportions is coming soon. What you need to know. I agree. I do think a debt jubilee is coming. We are seeing countries now demanding debt jubilees. I told you that Sri Lanka rose up against his government and made a demand to get out the World Bank, get out the IMF. They're not going to pay the debt. They want total debt forgiveness. And then they would move forward with reestablishing their government. Understand that that's all part of this World Economic Forum's plan, is to put us into debt so that we fall in line with their agenda. But it all depends on the people. It all depends on how you go about this, what your demands are. Remember, you're the final say-so. So if it all goes to crap and you get stuck into their system, then you have nobody to blame but yourself. Don't wait around for freaking white hats and think clones are running around and that you're going to sit on the couch and eat potato chips or popcorn or whatever the hell it is. Nobody's over there in freaking Gitmo. Just focus on this, okay? 4,000 years ago, the rulers of ancient Babylon discovered a technique to stave off violent revolts. In ancient times, there was a tendency for people to become hopelessly in debt to their creditors. Eventually, they would rise up and cause instability that could threaten the entire ruling system. The rulers of ancient world recognized this dynamic. Their solution was to enact widespread debt cancellation, a debt jubilee. Debt jubilees acted as a societal pressure release valve when there was no other options, which we're there now, in my opinion. The practice spread in the ancient world and became codified in different civilizations. For example, the book of Leviticus recognizes debt jubilees as the end of a 49-year biblical cycle, 7 cycles of 7 years. I think this ancient practice will make a big comeback soon as debt reaches unbearable levels today. There's no doubt it's there now. Most countries' GDP to debt ratio is way out of whack. It says, in fact, the debt jubilee have already started and the investment consequences will be profound. It's important to note that the debt jubilee does not magically create new wealth. They simply redistribute it. Debt jubilees are government decrees that amount to a massive wealth transfer with big winners and losers. The PPP loan forgiveness during the RONA hysteria was the prelude. President Biden's student loan forgiveness took it to the next level and was the next stage of modern debt jubilee of biblical proportions. That actually has not gone through. It's been stopped. So this article obviously needs to be updated. The student loan forgiveness was unprecedented. Unilateral executive action of this size has never occurred during a time of peace. Moreover, Congress, not the president, is supposed to make spending decisions of this magnitude. Remember when Nancy Pelosi came out and said that Biden cannot do debt forgiveness? It's not up to him, it's up to Congress. Then she turned around and said Biden can do debt forgiveness. Man, they flip-flop so much it's not even funny. And you see right here, no, the president can't do debt forgiveness of this size. Congress has to pass that bill. It is estimated that the immediate and deferred cost of the student loan forgiveness to be at least $590 billion. Dang, that's a lot. Biden's student loan debt jubilee went too far for even Obama's former chief economic advisor, Jason Furman, who described it as pouring roughly $500 billion of gasoline on the inflationary fire, which is already burning reckless. See, understand there is a group of people who want to keep us in debt. So I think that's where that individual is coming for more than anything else. Aside from the inflationary effects, which I'll get into here in a moment, the student loan jubilee also set a precedent that I think will be impossible to reverse. Consider how the people who behaved prudently feel. These people took different career paths to avoid student loans, cut back on their spending so they could afford college without borrowing or pay off their student debt. These people are probably feeling like suckers now. Here's the thing when it comes to debt jubilee. If you're too busy wondering if the grass is greener on the other side or who made out and who didn't, then you're missing the whole purpose of the debt jubilee. That crap shouldn't matter. If everybody is receiving debt forgiveness of some kind, again, don't worry about who got the biggest forgiveness versus people who didn't get any debt forgiveness because they were responsible. Just understand that if everybody experiences a type of debt jubilee, then what happens is individuals have more discretionary funds to spend money. I'm going to assume that the vast majority, not all, of course, are going to learn their lesson, but the vast majority of people have learned their lesson and they're not going to fall right back into debt again. Now, again, I'm not saying that's everybody. I'm saying the vast majority of people, you will now have more discretionary funds They'll go out, they'll start buying things that they want or need, and this will stimulate the economy, and we will have a strong economic boom all over again. I imagine these people will be angry and probably have considerable car, mortgage, and credit card debt, as many Americans do. So they will want debt relief too, and I bet they will get it, as they should. Everybody should start off from scratch. Amid rising prices, consumer debt is skyrocketing. It is at an all-time high of over $16 trillion as seen in the charts below. But understand that the government caused most of this debt, not the people. That's why I think it's really important before the government starts passing massive bills that they need to reach out to the public and go over with them and figure out what the public will agree to and won't. And I know people say, well, that will just disrupt the flow of how government goes. It'll slow things down, but it's necessary so that this never happens again. Either that or us as citizens have to set a hard stop. When it gets this dollar amount, then we're not going to approve the budget anymore. No matter what the case is, this is going to force the politicians to be a lot more conservative with the money they spend and make them accountable for where the money went. I want to be able to have an audit every year so I know that the money is going to where it should. I don't want to be spending money on studying the dance habits of lesbians on ecstasy. There's weird crap out there like that. That's just frivolous spending. That's the crap I don't want to see. This is how we got to where we are. All these little pet projects that the Democrats do out there. 16 trillion is ridiculous. With interest rates rising, the cost of servicing this record debt is becoming unbearable for many. As a result, many Americans have reached their maximum debt saturation and are hitting a financial breaking point. As Biden demonstrated, all it takes is a president's pen stroke to wipe out hundreds of billions in debt. I think the political pressure to do this again will be irresistible, especially before elections, as a way to court voters. The debt forgiveness never took place. Sure, he signed it, but it was stopped dead in its tracks by the courts. The student loan jubilee set a precedent. I don't think it will be that long before we see credit card jubilee, a car loan jubilee, and a mortgage jubilee. Now, I haven't said that the executive order that Biden signed getting stopped in its tracks by the courts. That doesn't mean we can't get debt jubilee. There is one thing that Biden can do that would be similar to a debt jubilee, and it is in his power to do this. You see, the student loans that we have is called a guaranteed student loan. That means you cannot write that off in a bankruptcy. All he has to do is change that one thing. He doesn't have to go out there and say to everybody, your debt loan is forgiven. If they're going to block him that way, then the one thing he can do is remove the option to write off your student loan debt to bankruptcy. Once he does that, then that would be the same as debt relief. A lot of people would write off their student loans. How will the government pay for all these jubilees? It's improbable they could raise taxes enough to pay for them. It also wouldn't make sense to issue more debt to cancel other debts. That leaves money printing as the only way they can finance these jubilees. So my guess is that's what they'll do. Well, hell, look how much money we printed. The debt should have been gone a long time ago. That's why the coming debt jubilee will pour gasoline on an inflationary fire that is already burning. So it isn't just a matter of forgiving the debt. The people have to force the government to stay within the budget and not to go over it at all. There can't be any excuses for them to get higher than the limit we send. And what that does is cut down a lot of frivolous spending, and it allows the money to go to where it is needed, and that's it. But it's not just consumer debt that has become unbearable. The big enchilada is the government's federal debt. The U.S. federal government has the biggest debt in the history of the world, and it continuing to grow at a rapid, unstoppable pace. Well, here's one thing that people got to understand. We are taking money out of our right pocket. We are lending it to our left pocket and charging them interest. Get rid of the Federal Reserve. The Treasury needs to take back over to printing and stop charging us interest on the money we print for you. That's ridiculous. In short, the U.S. government is fast approaching the financial endgame. Here's why. Today, the U.S. federal debt has gone parabolic and is scores of trillions. If you earn $1 per second, it would take you over 992,956 years to pay off the U.S. federal debt. And that's with unrealistic assumptions that it would stop growing. The truth is the debt will keep piling up unless Congress makes some politically impossible decisions to cut spending. That's what I'm talking about. How if we can't trust the government to cut spending, then the people need to take over and say, let us audit what you have on your books. We need to see where this money is going, and then we'll decide what is allowed to be paid and what isn't. I know that sounds crazy, but if we, the people, don't take charge, look how out of control our government has gotten. It is up to the people to be the watchers of our government and to tell them what we want, not the other way around. But don't count on that happening. In fact, they're racing in the opposite direction now that they've normalized multi-trillion-dollar deficits. Yeah, we see that happening. The amount of debt is so extreme that even a return of interest rates to their historic average would mean paying the interest rate expenses on the debt would consume more than half of the current tax revenues. Interest expenses would eclipse Social Security and defense spending and become the largest item of the federal budget. No, what they could do is turn around and reevaluate gold, is what they could do. Do an RV on gold. Because the United States is holding gold. If you change the value of gold, that means those assets sit on the books of the Federal Reserve, and we can use gold to pay off the debt. So in short, the Federal Reserve is trapped. Well, they're bankrupt. They're insolvent. I can tell you that right now. How they're functioning is beyond me. They are insolvent. Now, I know people go, well, they got the printer. Are they actually printing? I mean, seriously, they're not. You mean they got to push the button on the computer to bring the money up is what it is? In other words, the game is over. They have no choice but to reset the system. That's what governments do when they are trapped. How are they going to reset the system? Nobody knows for sure, but I'd bet a debt jubilee of biblical proportions will be a big part of it. So then, how will the U.S. government repudiate its impossible federal debt burden? My guess is that it won't be explicit. That would look too much like a default. It would destroy the role of the United States as the center of the world's financial system. Given a choice, I don't think the U.S. government would choose immediate self-destruction. Since power does not relinquish itself voluntarily, we should presume they'll decide to stealthily implement their federal debt jubilee through inflation. Inflation is the big bonus to debtors. It allows you to borrow in dollars and repay in dimes. And that's why you see our inflation going up. I told you what they do is they devalue the dollar and pay the dollar off with cheaper dollars, which means that you're paying off the debt with the same dollar but has cheaper purchasing power. It's cheaper. And since the United States government is the biggest debtor in the history of the world, it is the single largest beneficiary of inflation. That's why I think the federal debt jubilee will come in a form of massive wave of inflation. Here's the bottom line. The coming debt jubilee could have the effect of wiping out many trillions worth of liabilities and creating previously unfathomable inflation. That could trigger the largest wealth transfer in history. Remember, debt doesn't exist within a vacuum. It is a liability to the borrower and an asset to the lender. Those storing their wealth in government currencies, bondholders, and creditors will be the big losers. Debtor and those who own unencumbered or scarce assets will be the big winners, like gold and silver. It's certainly not a just outcome. Prudent savers shouldn't be made to pay for the excess of the debtors. But notions of what is just or not did not impede Biden's student loan jubilee, and they certainly won't for the coming jubilees, although that would be unfortunate for many people. There is simply nothing anyone can do. Well, yeah, there is. We know that the banks have been robbing us blind for the longest time, manipulating the markets, and stealing the wealth of the people. What you do is just take the money back from them. I mean, come on, give me a break. George Soros has like $18 billion. Take some of that money back from these people. The debt levels have already reached a point of saturation, and the government could soon see jubilees as a politically attractive option. That's why it is best to recognize the reality of the big picture and get positioned accordingly. This means owning scarce and valuable assets that are not simultaneously someone else's liability. Crucially, this excludes fiat currencies and bank accounts. Remember, fiat currency is unbacked liability of a bankrupt government. That's why I keep saying take your money out of the bank and swap it for something of real value like gold or silver. Further, once deposit currencies into the bank, it is no longer yours. Technically and legally, it is the bank's property, And what you own instead is an unsecured liability of the bank. In the era of jubilee in which debtors are wiped clean, you won't want to be on the other end of this unsecured liability of any kind. In other words, take your money out of the bank, is what they're saying. I've been preaching that now for how long? I suspect it could all come down soon, and it will not be pretty for many. Most people have no idea how bad things can get when a currency collapses, let alone how to prepare. Well, I do. I know exactly how to prepare. And the assets that you should be into are not stocks, are not cryptocurrencies, are not other people's foreign currency assets, it's not bonds or anything like that. You want something that are commodities, oil, if you can get into that. Precious metals are the best way for you to go. That's why I've been preaching to people who listen to my channel now for a long time. And many of you have already taken that step and have been stacking gold and silver now for quite a while. So congratulations to you. When the dust settles, we will be on the other side of things, sitting pretty. Anyways, that's it for now. You guys let me know what you think. I'll look forward to your comments, and I will catch you later. I am out.